In any of the meetings about this in the last 24 hours, has anybody in the West Wing heard anybody talking about the possibility of Speaker Trump?
This is something for House Republicans to figure out. This is something for them to fix. We're not going to get involved in the speakership. We don't care who is in the race or who is out the race. That is not for us to figure out. The president doesn't have a vote. No one here has a vote. They have to figure this out.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
Fallout continues a day after the stunning removal of Representative Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker. Fox 26 political reporter Greg Rugen has been talking with congressional Republicans from the Houston area, both on and off the record here. Greg, and what comes next?
Okay, Anthony, it's important to report none of the 8 Republicans who joined with Democrats to oust McCarthy were from Texas. That said, Congressman Troy Nehls from Fort Bend County is already nominating a replacement, none other than former President Donald J. Trump. Nehls first made the announcement on social media and says he followed up with a private phone conversation last night with the former president. Back in the district late this afternoon, Nehls told Fox 26 there's nothing in the Constitution barring the appointment of a private citizen to lead the lower chamber.
So I'm thinking to myself, a majority of the conference has supported Donald Trump. If he's good enough to be our president, why can't he be our speaker for 14 months? He could come in and clean up the House, get us together, get us united, get us ready for November of 2024, and make Congress great again.
To be absolutely clear, Congressman Nehls says he wants the former president to continue his run for the White House, even if he's chosen to lead the House. Meantime, this afternoon outside his civil fraud trial in New York, Mr. Trump was asked about the potential nomination as Speaker. He responded by saying he would do whatever was in the best interest of Congress and the Republican Party. In the newsroom, Greg Grugan, Fox 26 News.
All right, guys, so we have some pretty big news to talk about when it comes to the possibility of Trump becoming Speaker of the House, okay? So it seems that it is closer to reality than many people think, because Trump has just come out and announced that he would accept a House speakership for a short period of time while Republicans decide on a permanent replacement. Now, here's the thing. Congress is in a stalemate until they find a new speaker, okay? They can't really do anything in the House until they have a speaker to essentially get things started once again. So until then, it seems like Trump is interested in serving as speaker in order to unify the Republican Party, as there's speculation that he could be headed to the Capitol to do just that. Take a look.
All right, let me bring in Garrett Hake, who is the lead reporter on this reporting. What can you tell us, Garrett?
Well, Chris, this appears to be a classic Donald Trump float, where in conversations with his allies, with lawmakers here on Capitol Hill, he's gauging interest in what he could do if he showed up, whether it would be helpful, whether it would be in his best interest, and what the reception would be if he chose to do so. He, in conversation with some of his allies, had discussed the idea of trying to unify the party. But I think, as you guys were just discussing, that probably runs counter to the actual reality of an appearance here, which would be the first time he'd been back on the Capitol since January 6th, and would come at a time where how to handle him, endorsements of him, how to handle the path forward for the party is very much an open question. So having a non-member present for what is going to be at least 2 days and possibly longer of closed-door, member-only, intra-party discussions, I don't know would achieve any specific objective other than get Donald Trump involved in the big Republican political story of the week next week, which would be who the next speaker may be out of that party.
Yeah, so, I think that it's important for Trump to be involved in those discussions because Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. And as the leader, I think that it would be a good thing if he could unite the party around a speaker, whether that be Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise, or himself, at least temporarily until they decide. The number one thing for the Republican Party right now is to be united, because that is what the liberal media fears the most, okay? And this is why they are coping and seething over the fact that Trump may go to D.C. to unite the party and to temporarily become speaker while the Republican Party unites if need be.
Donald Trump just told Fox Digital that he would accept the job of House Speaker for a short period of time while House Republicans decide on a permanent replacement. Mr. Trump said he would be willing to serve for up to 90 days as a unifier. I hesitate to even bring you this news because it seems so preposterous, and yet
I assume some lawyer tried to find out if you could pardon yourself and maybe
Right.
instead of there to take that job.
Well, unfortunately, he doesn't know the House rules, which say if you're indicted, you cannot be in House leadership. That has been a Republican rule that apparently neither he nor some of the Republicans know. Remember back when Tom DeLay was indicted, he stepped aside from Republican leadership.
Is that right?
That's a rule that's in place. It's been in place for years. I mean, you have Senator Menendez over in the Senate who stepped aside from his leadership role. Democrats apparently have the same rule. I do not think that, well, who knows, that Republicans going to change that rule.
You don't think that they would take away that rule?
Well, if Republicans want to lose the House, listen, I am not a fan, obviously, of Donald Trump. Will not be voting for him, but if they're going to be doing this, they really will be burning down the House.
This is a disaster.
Yeah.
An absolute disaster. That's all.
Yeah, just keep burning down the House.
Unacceptable.
Just four words. This
is a disaster.
For them or you?
America.
It's for the country.
For
it
America.
is a disaster for the country.
Everyone. Republicans,
for the Constitution, for the country.
And Democrats.
Yeah, for everybody.
A disaster.
I was going to say, we can't call everything a disaster.
That would be a disaster.
Something that is politically embarrassing and probably kicks, quixotic is not necessarily a disaster for all of us, and that's what we're looking at.
President Trump is considering a visit to the U.S. Capitol early next week as House Republicans consider who should be their next speaker, according to 2 GOP lawmakers and 2 Trump allies. Former president, who has not set foot on Capitol grounds since prior to January 6th, is considering making an appearance. So he goes on Fox News this afternoon and says this, quote, "They have asked me if I want it." Not clear who the they are. There are voices in his head who sometimes chime in as well, as we all know. But Basil, do we entertain this? Do we give it oxygen? Do we ignore it in the next surprise if it happens? What do we do with this?
Well, I think you can't ignore it, because the reality is every GOP candidate on that debate stage, even if they claim to be running against Donald Trump's policies, they still sort of fealty to him. So he's going to be a player in all of this. And of course, I hate to say that, but the reality is I have to account for it, I should say. And what you won't see is what we saw in 1994 with Newt Gingrich standing with members of Congress and saying, this is the contract with America, and all the intellectual underpinnings from the Heritage Foundation. I don't mean to sound wistful about that time on the Republican Party, but it does reinforce this juxtaposition where you had Representative Comer on Tuesday saying, we have no plan. Representative Davidson saying, there's no path forward to governing. So to me, what you're looking at with either Scalise Jordan and Donald Trump's influence is that you're looking at who's going to more quickly decimate what's left of the Republican Party. And create something that is so antithetical to where the rest of this country is, that, I hate to use the term lesser of two evils.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, right? I don't think that if Trump shows up to Capitol Hill that there's going to be chaos that erupts as a result. No, I actually think he's going to show up and make sure that the Republican Party is unified, because that is essentially in his best interest to do, right? To show that I am the leader and that I can get everything together and lead us forward, which I'm sure that Trump can do. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I would expect to see from Trump if this scenario actually happened, which looks likely, or more likely than, normal that it would happen or will happen. And don't let the liberal media fool you and trick you into thinking that it can't happen, like in that CNN clip where those women were all melting down, right? Talking about it would be a disaster for Democrats, it would be a disaster for everybody, for America if Trump became speaker, even for a short time. Again, they just hate the idea of Trump controlling the House. Again, it would be hilarious and it would be funny. But anyways, he can't actually become speaker because that rule that bars anybody that is being indicted for crimes that could jail you for more than 2 years, that rule doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Republicans can literally take away that rule, or they can just ignore it. The worst thing that can happen is that the ethics committee, which doesn't have a lot of power, could fine Trump, okay, or I guess, I don't know, whoever is responsible. Maybe they fine the whole GOP. I'm not sure how that would work. But again, it would come down to the ethics committee in regards to what type of punishment would be levied. But they don't have that many options at all, okay? Because the worst they can do is, I guess, expel Trump. But they wouldn't have the votes, right? If they voted to make the guy speaker, they wouldn't have the votes to actually expel him. So again, it doesn't even make sense. It 100% can happen. That rule is irrelevant, okay? So don't let the liberal media and Democrats fool you by saying, oh, no, it can't happen. It can't happen. No, it can't happen. It definitely can happen. But first, again, there's some hoops to jump through in order to actually get Trump to become speaker, because you have to get all of the Republicans on board to agree, and they only have a narrow majority in the House. And you still have some people that, again, are holding out and saying, nah, I don't think I would vote for Trump to be speaker.
Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell both held Trump responsible for events of that day, or at least partly responsible. Do you want Trump to come to the Capitol?
Look, we've never had a speaker that's been elected that is not a member of the House. I think the choice for speaker will be someone who is currently a member of Congress. And I think these discussions should be among the members. We have a lot to deal with in the coming days in choosing a new speaker. I think there really needs to be a reckoning within the conference on what occurred. And how we move forward to do the work of the American people. And, you know, I think it's frankly, a blunt conversation that needs to occur if we're going to get to 218 and choose a speaker to move forward and get to the work of the American people.
Okay. To be clear, you do not want Trump to come?
Look, I think the discussion should be focused on the people that are in the conference. I think we need to have a very blunt and direct conversation. I think the candidate that will ultimately be chosen as speaker is going to come out of the conference. So I think that's where the conversation needs to be focused.
Now, of course, you have some members of the GOP, like, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is dead set on making Trump Speaker of the House. Take a look.
I think that if President Trump were to jump in as speaker for this last year of this horrific regime known as the Biden administration and had to call votes on bills, could you imagine what would get done? That's number one. Number two, it's free press for a year. He doesn't have to pay for advertising for his campaign. They'll cover him every day on the House floor. And number three, doesn't the speaker, Marjorie, usually have to communicate and negotiate things with the sitting president? Could you imagine that meeting on camera?
That's right. And that would be all. Those are all the reasons that I absolutely love it. But I mostly love his policies, Dan. And so does the entire country. The entire country is supporting President Trump. He's beating Joe Biden poll after poll for the general election. He's winning the primary so overwhelmingly. The primary should be over and every single candidate should drop out and apologize for running against him. But I'll go a step further, Dan. Most Republican members in the House that I work with have been endorsed by President Trump, and they won their campaigns because they begged for his endorsement. So I think President Trump is the right guy for the job. I certainly would love to see him be Speaker of the House. He's the man I support not only for Speaker of the House, but for President of the United States in 2024.
Yeah, so Trump says that he would serve as Speaker for a short time period. 30, 60, 90 days, if need be, if Republicans can't decide, and he would try to serve as a unifier. Now, he claims that he doesn't want to do it. He would only do it if it is necessary, should they not be able to make a decision. Now, what exactly does that mean? I'm not entirely sure, but here's what I think about the whole situation. I believe that if Republicans are indecisive about who should be Speaker right now, and they actually do need more time, I actually do think it's a good idea to make Trump Speaker, but only for a very, very, very short amount of time. I think that they should do it at the very least as a symbolic move that, hey, we're unified. Okay, we're going to unify and allow Trump to be Speaker. We're going to make history. Okay, and this is going to be a FU to the Democrats. Because again, can you imagine how the liberal heads would explode if Trump became Speaker of the House, right? The symbolism behind the first person to ever become Speaker of the House that is actually not a member of Congress. Democrats will lose their minds just at the thought of Trump having the gavel and having control over House proceedings. Even if it's for a short period of time, they wouldn't be able to stand it, because at that point, Trump would technically be their boss, right? He could tell them when to come back into work, when to be at the Capitol, and he could do a whole bunch of different things as Speaker, even if it's for a short period of time. Now, again, I don't think it should be a long period of time, because Republicans actually do need to get back to work. But again, while they are indecisive in regards to what to do, I think, again, it would be a pretty cool thing to see Trump be Speaker, just as a show of unity and just as an FU to Democrats, right? Democrats do this stuff all the time, where they make these symbolic moves just to say, oh, well, we made history, right? Well, maybe it's time for Republicans to do a little bit of that, okay? And make history by making Trump Speaker of the House. It's not a role that he can serve in long term. I actually don't think it's a good role for him, considering how you actually really do need to understand the ins and outs of Congress at an expert level in order to actually be Speaker of the House. I don't think that Trump has that level of knowledge about Congress, and that's not a slight against him. I just think he's better served to be president. He's already learned the job of president. He's better as president, and because he's running for president, he needs to focus on that. Also, with his indictments as well, too, it would be hard for him to serve as Speaker of the House while going through the indictments. But hey, at least for a short time period, it could be free campaign media attention, because, again, if Trump became Speaker of the House, liberal heads will roll, right? The liberal media would be covering him every single day. It will be free media attention. And if Trump can actually unify the Republican Party, right? Let's say they make him Speaker, and then eventually they decide on a guy, whether it be Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan, and then they all in unison decide to vote for a guy to succeed Trump. That wraps up the primary for Trump. I mean, the primary is basically already pretty much wrapped up, but this would seal the deal, right? An event like this happening where Trump goes to the Capitol, unites the Republican Party, either around him as temporary Speaker or somebody else wins the job. But again, with the help of Trump, they all decide and they say, okay, we're not going to have any more coups, right? We're just going to move forward with this guy as the Speaker. This is going to be the Speaker of the House, and that's it. I think that that is the best case scenario. Again, that would just absolutely ensure that the primary is wrapped up. Trump is going to be the guy. He is the unquestioned leader of the Republican Party. I think it's in his best interest to attempt to do that. Now, what can't happen is that Trump can't go to Capitol Hill and then Republicans still be in a state of chaos, okay? He has to go with the intent on unifying and making sure that he can get everybody together behind one speaker, whether that be him temporarily or, again, somebody else. He has to do it, and he has to do it in one shot, right? It can't be the same thing that happened before where Republicans took 15 rounds to decide who they wanted to be Speaker. No. The best thing for Republicans to do right now is to unify as fast as possible, okay, to get around one guy and to move forward with the America First agenda. That is what they need to do, okay? They need to get back on track. So if Trump can help do that, which I think that he can, then I'm all for it, right? And I think that this is a time for Trump to shine. It would be a genius move, and I think it would be a great idea. Again, I don't think a good idea would be for Trump to serve it long term. We actually need somebody that is a member of Congress to be Speaker for various reasons. Again, that, you know, hey, I don't really blame Trump for lacking in some of these qualities I think are needed. But I'm just saying, at the very least, this could be a moment for Trump to really solidify himself and to gain another boost. So, hey, I would love to see a scenario where Trump becomes Speaker temporarily. I actually hope that's what happens, just to stick it to the liberals, and then the GOP unites, get behind one guy, no more coups, and it's just straightforward. Let's get to the American First agenda. Let's hand it to the Democrats. Let's win 2024. That's what I want to see. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.